Hi there everyone, I am Chris, this is Simply Classic, and today we're going to do a full tutorial on the Joyce by American Stitchers. So this pattern is first time I've done it, so we're going to do it together. True to American Stitchers, we do have some hidden pockets in the back, which are my favorite. I love it when they're hidden, so we're going to go ahead and go through the whole thing. If you like American Stitchers patterns, I have several on the YouTube channel, so go to YouTube. First, subscribe, please, and then go to playlists, and you're going to see all of the American Stitchers tutorials that I've done there in that playlist. So, let's get going on the Joyce. We're going to start out by going over pattern pieces. Now the bag appears to be a pretty big bag. We've got some pretty big pieces here. The first thing we have is 4 strap connectors, and you see they're kind of an interesting shape. We have our handle. We have our side pieces, which are 2 the same. Now I'm using this fairly new crocodile from our website. It is chestnut colored and it's just so pretty. There are a front piece and a back piece. One piece is slightly larger than the other. They're the same shape, but the one where the pockets is going is a little bit different in size. Okay, so front and back. Now on all of these pieces, there's no stabilizer, no Decaville heavy, Decaville light, foam, nothing. It's a kind of a slouchy bag, like a hobo style bag. So we're going to see how that comes together. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. We have our bottom. Now this is the one piece that does have some stabilizer. So I have Decaville heavy on my bottom outside my seam allowances. We have for the lining our zipper overlay and our slip pocket accent piece. We have our zipper pockets. And I'm using a linen from our website. This one is called Safari. I do have some woven fuse 2 on the back of the pocket pieces and all of the lining pieces. We have our lining bottom, which is the same shape and size as the main bag. We have our slip pocket, which is one big piece. We have our 2 lining pieces, which are big. Okay, we have 2 of them. And there are, of course, like I said, woven fuse 2 on the back of all of these lining pieces. And then we also have our concealed carry pocket pieces. Now, I'm using some waterproof canvas for that. Our outer pocket piece is here. We are putting foam on the back. Now, I don't have fusible foam, but I don't want to have it in my seam allowance. So I'm going to just sew it on. And in the back, you will see, and I did this on purpose, I wrote outer on there, and I actually drew in 1 inch from the top, from each side, and from the bottom. And I'm going to make sure that this foam piece fits perfect inside. The cutting chart measurements are not correct for these concealed carry foam pieces. Pocket pieces are fine. The foam is not right. So let me give you the measurement for that. For the outer concealed carry pocket piece, the foam should be cut 7 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Okay? The cutting chart says something other than that. And like I said, I just went ahead and drew my line so I can make sure that fits in and make sure it's correct. The inner concealed carry pocket piece is a little bit larger. I did the same thing. I wrote inner on it and drew my lines. The foam for that needs to be 8 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Okay? And once you cut it, just make sure that it fits within your lines, and then you'll be okay. You'll know you've got it correct. And the foam is incorrect in the cutting chart, the size, but the pocket is correct. You have a pattern piece for the pocket, so you're fine with that. We're also, of course, going to use hardware. We've got rivets, we've got swivel clasps. Of course, we have zippers, zipper pulls, And then I haven't done this in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and put some Velcro on the concealed pocket. I've done it in a few videos, and then I talked about it in some others and didn't do it, but we're going to do it this time. And I'm going to show you what I get. I just go to either Lowe's, Walmart, Home Depot, something like that, and I buy this industrial strength heavy duty Velcro. You're only going to use the loop side, which is the super soft side, not the hard side. And you cut one piece, and then we're going to cut this in half, and we'll get it on the pocket piece. Okay? So let's get stitching. Step one is to fuse the foam onto your inner concealed carry pocket pieces. Now, I don't have fusible foam. I use Annie's Soft and Stable, so I just sewed this on, and you can just see that stitch all the way around. No problem. Looks nice and square. Everything's great. You're going to cut your Velcro so that they're 4 inches long, and Gail gives you a measurement. You can measure up from the bottom, and you're going to center the Velcro right in this, or on this pocket. Now, you can put the Velcro on both if you want. We want to have a 4-inch section of Velcro. So if you have 2-inch Velcro, you're just going to cut extra pieces. This industrial strength Velcro has a sticky back, so that's nice. It sticks right on there for you. If you want it to be a right-hand draw or a left-hand draw, you put it on both. I'm just going to put it on the inner piece, and we're going to stitch that on. So I'm going to go around all the sides, but I'm also going to go down these 2 middle sides as well. And I do back stitch on this. It's inside a pocket, so it's really not going to be seen. And then I'm going to stitch down these 2 middle sections here. Okay, so from the front, here's what you have. You have these 2 Velcro pieces on nice. This is the loop side, which is the soft side. And that's what it looks like from the back. All right, let's move on to the next step. Okay, in our next part, we're going to form our hidden zipper pocket in the back. So take your back piece, which is the larger of the 2 pieces that looks like this. And Gail gives you a measurement to measure down from the top, and this is going to be for your zipper placement. So I've already measured down, and I've put 2 marks on each top section. I also went ahead and put double-sided tape, 1/8 of an inch, on both edges of both sides of my zippers, okay? And put the pulls on. So we are going to pull the tape off one edge, and we're going to align the top of our zipper up with the mark that we made on the edge of this outer piece. Just like that. Okay? We're going to do the same thing on this side. Now make sure your zippers are going in the up direction. You want them to zip up. And I just took the backing off the wrong side to have it zip up. Shouldn't take it off this side. I'm just laying it right on the side, right on the edge. Okay, so now take your outer concealed carry pocket piece. This is going to be the one. If you put Velcro on both, obviously you can have Velcro on here, but if you didn't, this will be the one without the Velcro. And we're going to peel the backing off this outer edge. So the edge that you just stuck down. I'm going to peel the backing off that. And we're going to put the edge of the credit card or concealed carry pocket piece down. And she also gives you a measurement as to how far down you want to have it on the bottom. Okay, right about here. Now when you go to stick your other side, you're going to have to pull it. You see how it's short? It's supposed to be that way. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this side.
That's it.
I need to move my zipper pull and make sure you don't pull it off. And if you do, you can put it back on, but try not to do that. Okay, so now peel the backing off the other side. This again is the side that has the raw edge. We're going to peel the backing off the tape there. And we're going to take the pocket and just go ahead and move it over and stick it to the edge. We want to make sure that we're consistent at the bottom with how far away it is from the bottom. Do it this way so I can see. Check my bottom measurement. It looks about right.
Well,
So now we're going to stitch this.
good.
My zipper pull. Okay, so from here, this is what we have. Of course, we have kind of the bottom or the back piece. You got more on it than the concealed carry piece. So we're going to flip this. Okay, this is what we have. So now get one of your side pieces. This is the side I peeled the backing off that I shouldn't have, so let me do this side first. You're going to put your side piece on the side of the zipper. Okay, so I'm going to lay this flat. I'm going to take my side piece, make sure it's going in the right direction. Make sure my bottoms are lined up. And I'm going to take this piece and put it right side on the zipper. I'm going to make sure that the zipper is on the edge. Okay, just like that. And now I'm going to take my other concealed carry pocket. I'm going to peel the backing off the tape here. So this is the last piece of backing I'm pulling off of this zipper. And we are going to go ahead and align the bottom of our pocket pieces. And we're going to stick this on.
Thanks.
And if you want to use clips to kind of help you here, you can. The double-sided tape does a pretty good job. So before I do the other side, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this. And this time I'm going to stitch all the way up at the top of this pocket. Okay. So I'm going to start up here. Remove the zipper. Okay, so now this is what we have. When we move our side piece over, this is your inner pocket, which is still free. We're going to tack it down here in just a minute, but you have your side piece. So get your other side piece, and we're going to put it on the other side of this zipper. So just kind of push everything over. Okay. We're going to peel the backing off of the front of this zipper. Put our side piece down. Make sure I have the side piece. I had the wrong piece. And we're going to make sure our bottoms are aligned. So the bottom of the back and the bottom of the side are at the same level. And then we're going to put this on. Okay, so now we got to put the other side of this pocket on this tape. So peel the backing off the tape. This is the last piece, the backing we're removing. And we're going to line up the bottom of the pocket pieces here and go ahead and stick it on. Make sure your sides are aligned. And you do have some extra fabric here because these pockets are hidden. So you may have to kind of finagle with it a little bit. And as you can see, I put the pocket at the bottom of this whole thing instead of matching up the bottoms. See that? So I got to unstick it and do it again. Because you want your bottom of your concealed carry pockets to be even. So I'm just pushing all that extra fabric out of the way as I get this down. Okay. So before I sew, let me just open this up and show you. We have our side, our two pocket pieces, which are even here at the bottom. Okay. They're above the exteriors. My exteriors are matched up, and so now we're going to sew. And this side of the exterior is a little bit longer. Let me pull that off. You just always want to look before you sew. Make sure everything is aligned. I'm going to move this one just a little bit. Probably about 1/4 of an inch. There we go. That looks better.
Yes.
Okay, so now everything looks aligned, and I'm going to go ahead and sew. So make sure that when you sew, you put your side piece to the back. You want to make sure that all this in here is nice and flat. And then we're going to stitch. Need to move my zipper pull. Make sure everything's aligned and finish up. Remember, you're going to stitch all the way to the end here. All right, so now we need to do a little bit of top stitching. So on these side pieces, you want to put your seam allowance towards the side, open that side up, and we're going to top stitch right along the side of the zipper. Don't do it on this back panel where you have this extra little bit, because we're going to even that out and it's going to hide the zipper, so you don't want to top stitch there. You're just going to top stitch on the side pieces.
Okay.
And then we're going to flip it. We're going to move the back over. We're going to make sure our seam allowance is again going towards the side piece, and we're going to top stitch. Okay, so now this is what we have. We have a nice top stitch edge on both of our sides, and we have just a little bit extra on the back here. So we need to go ahead and make sure that our concealed carry pockets are nice and flat down here. Okay? And clip them together. So Gail suggests marking the center, which is a great idea. I'm going to make sure they match at the top as well. And clip. From here, flip this back over. We're going to lay this back nice and flat so that it covers these zippers. We want it even. We're going to clip right along the edges on both sides. Make sure that's going to cover my zipper. I'm going to make sure at the top it all looks nice and even. I could go a little bit further in this direction. Pull that over. Okay, so from here, we're going to flip this back over. So now we're looking at the wrong side. I'm going to move my side piece out of the way so I can see this edge where I just clipped. And we're going to top stitch that edge. So we're going to top stitch it on the fold. We're not going to start at the top though. We're going to start down. And Gail gives you the measurement as to how far down you start. And also, we're not going to stitch all the way to the bottom either. We'll have a measurement that we need to know there. So I'm going to mark this so I remember where and when to stop. And now from the back, I'm going to be top stitching. So make sure that your bobbin thread looks nice and all, and you don't have any problems with it. Make sure it's the same color thread. And now I'm just going to top stitch. And I'm going to, I'm just going to do like one little back stitch here, just enough to hold it. Making sure my zippers are out of the way. And just stitching down to that other mark I made. I'm just going to do one little back stitch, just enough to hold it. And look at how nice that sits. So pretty. So let me cut my threads, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So before I stitch the other side, I am going to make sure this lays nice and flat. I don't have to pull this side anymore. Looks good. So let me make my marks and stitch.
Yes. Please. Perfect.
All right, look at how pretty. Looks great. And then we have our pocket or zippers hidden back in here. So we need to make sure that our zippers are secure. And what I mean that our pulls don't come off. She has you do this at this point in the pattern. You probably could do it ahead of time. I'm going to do this by hand because I don't want to sew to the concealed pocket. I think I'd rather just... So all I'm going to do is to take some thread, I'll double it up, tie a knot, and then on just the zipper itself, I'm just going to do a little tack stitch. And she tells you about how far. I'm just going to kind of estimate that here. And I'm just going to go around the zipper, so back behind it. Oh, I probably should have put that knot in the back. Hold on. Let me do that again. Okay, so let me try this again. I'm going to come from behind, come up.
Serious.
And all I'm doing is going around the zipper teeth so that my zipper hole doesn't come off. And I'm not going to do it a bunch, probably just about 3 times, just enough to secure it. And then I'll tie a little knot in the back here.
But
Pull it good and tight.
yes, yes.
I'll make sure it works. Yeah, so see, once you have that thread there, your zipper pull cannot go any further. So you see it there, you see that little tack, and see the zipper can't go any further. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the top of this zipper and then on both the top and the bottom here, and then we'll move to the next step. Okay, I have all my bar tacks done, and I just want to clarify something. In the pattern, she has you pull this over, so pull this back piece over and stitch over the zipper with your machine. So essentially you're stitching it to the back conceal pocket piece, and you can certainly do that. I just felt like I didn't want to stitch it to that for no particular reason, honestly. It was just as easy for me to do a hand tack. But what you would do is just put your machine there and just stitch. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. So put your zipper pulls about in the middle of your zippers on both sides. And we're going to now top stitch this edge. So we want to do that from the right side. I'm just going to clip the top and the bottom so everything's nice and even. And you're just going to stitch from the top down to where your top stitching ended or started, and the same thing from the bottom up to where the top stitching started or ended from your original top stitch when we just top stitched the actual fold here. Okay, so make sure this is down nice and tight, and then again we'll get top stitch. And I'm going to start and stop in the same hole. And this time, because I don't want to have too much back stitching here, I am going to pull my threads through to the back. So I'm just going to cut them along, and I'll tie those off in just a moment. I'm going to make sure that I start in the same hole, which is a little hard to see with this pattern. There we go. And I will pull the threads through there, but I will back stitch here at the bottom. Make sure everything lines up there with my previous top stitching. Sorry. So in all of the places that I did not back stitch, which is basically in these middle sections here, okay, I back stitched at the tops and at the bottoms, but in these middle sections I did not. I'm just going to flip this over and pull these threads through and tie them off so that everything looks nice and neat from the front, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, we have one last thing to do before we're done with this pocket, and that is to stitch the bottom of the pockets together, because otherwise if we put anything in here right now it's going to fall out. So we need to stitch the bottom and the top. So I'm just going to clip these. So I'm just kind of moving this top part out of the way to clip them. Ooh, spilt my clips. Now my top pocket is a little bit, so the inner one, which is on the top, is a little bit taller than the one at the bottom. I'm just going to cut that back a little bit so that my edges match up and I can stitch these together easily. Okay, when I stitch this, I'm going to flip it over so it is right side up. And I'm just going to pull this front back and get as close as I can to stitch all that down. Okay, so I'm going to start here. This is actually going to be on the back piece a little bit. And just stitch from here. Okay, so see how this back piece, you got a little bit of back piece here. I'm going to hold that down and stitch from there all the way to the other side. And you can actually pull, let me show you this, you can pull your pocket back like this so that that lays flat and you can get your presser foot in there. Alright, so by pulling this pocket piece out and laying this whole thing flat, I was able to get really close to the edge. And then as I sewed, I pulled it in the other direction and I was able to get really close to the edge there as well. So you're able to close the entire top part of that pocket. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I think you can see here in this camera that as I pull this back, I'm just laying flat so I can get right there next to the seam. Just gonna roll it in the other direction. So you can really see from the back how I was able to get all the way from the edge where we stitched here all the way over to this edge, and same thing on the top, all the way from our previously stitched edge over, just by taking that top piece and moving it to wherever I needed it to be so I could get my foot in there. All right, and now we have this cool hidden pocket. Not even tell it's there. I love those hidden pockets. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put our front on. So we're just going to take our front piece. We're going to clip it to the side. And the seam allowance changes right here in the pattern a little bit, so make sure you're paying attention to that. And we're going to go ahead and stitch. We're going to open this up with the seam allowance going towards the top piece, and we're going to top stitch on the front piece. Okay, so now we're going to attach the two raw edges here, which is on our side piece and our front piece. Clip those in place. We're going to repeat. So making sure that the seam allowance is going towards the front piece again, we're going to top stitch. And of course now we're top stitching in the tunnel. So I'm going, and you have a big enough bag here, you can easily do it. So I'm just going to flatten this out first, kind of do a little finger press in there.
No bunches.
And then I like to start by putting my bag in. Okay, so I've got all the, slid it under the presser foot till the whole bag is to the back. And now I'm going to go ahead and start stitching. And then as I stitch, it's just going to get easier and easier as I come to the front. And I am making sure that the seam is laying flat as I stitch. Just take it little sections at a time. And there we go. Okay, we need to put the bottom on next. And before I do, and this is not part of the pattern, it's not part of anything really. It's just something extra that I like to do on my bags. And I guess you just call it a little simply classic tip. So I put the feet on. And I always like to put double-sided tape on the feet to hold them in place. And I know that some people put, masking tape or something like that, which is fine. I had a situation where I had to put some double-sided tape, or I had to fix something. I can't even remember what it was. But I had double-sided tape on the hardware, whether it was a snap or feet or I can't remember. But anyway, I had the hardest time getting it out. And the double-sided tape just kind of had it, I don't know, just kind of held it. It kind of gave it an extra little bit of stability, and I really liked it. So ever since then, I've always used double-sided tape on the back of my hardware. It's kind of twofold. It protects the lining and it gives it some extra hold. Okay, so here's my little extra tip that I like to do. So once I put the double-sided tape, instead of just leaving it and moving on, I cut a piece of foam that is the same size as the stabilizer, in this case the Decoville, and I peel the backing off the tape instead of just leaving it. And then I actually put the foam on top of that. And then I stitch around it. And what that does is it obviously protects the lining even more from the feet. You can't feel the feet on the bottom of the bag through the lining. And then it just kind of gives it a little extra cushion there at the bottom. And I really like it. And then you even have a little decorative stitch at the bottom of the bag. So just put that on, and then I'm just going to stitch all the way around. And yes, you're going to see your stitches through here, but I think again it just kind of gives it the bottom a nice outline. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, and then we're going to put the bottom onto the bag. Okay, now we want to attach the bottom to the bag. So at the bottom of the bag, you want to go ahead and mark your centers on the front and the back if you haven't done so yet. So I've done that with a notch. Then you're going to take a ruler and you're going to measure from that center mark out a certain measurement she gives you in the pattern to the right and to the left on both the front and the back piece. So I am going to do that and just make a mark with my fabric erasing pen. Then flip the ruler around, do the same thing this direction. And I'm going to do the same thing on the front side. So the numbers on my ruler go in both directions. So I want to make sure I'm picking up the right mark. So, okay. From there, you're going to make slits in the bottom of the bag right where your marks are. Now, before I do this, I am actually going to clip my bottom onto the bag to make sure everything matches up okay. Because sometimes we have cutting mistakes and, you know, we do things that maybe we shouldn't. Unintentionally, of course. So I'm going to clip this on, and I'm just going to make sure that those marks are in the right spot. Now, they're not going to be at the very edge of your piece. What you're going to do is you're going to basically start stitching at that mark, and you're going to stitch from that mark all the way to the other mark. If you clip this, you're going to be able to turn it and you'll know exactly where that is. Okay? So, I like to usually stitch first and then clip. But you can certainly clip, meaning snip, not wonder clip, but snip the bag first, if you would like. So it can kind of help you see where to start and stop. If you do it this way, you can certainly make those same markings on the bottom piece. And it usually is just on the inside of your stabilizer. You never want to stitch on the stabilizer. You're always going to stitch, I should say, on the outside of the stabilizer, not the inside. So I'm just going to make a mark here on the bottom piece as well. So that I know exactly where to start and stop. We're going to stitch the long sides first. So I'm just going to put my needle in at that mark and stitch down. Don't stitch past your mark or your clip. And then we're going to turn it around and do the same thing. going to measure to make sure I am correct.
Yes. Yeah. There.
So now when I clip, I should see that it's right about where my stitching stopped. So when you clip, you're only going to clip the main part of your bag, not your bottom. Okay? And we're just going to come in and make a small little clip. You're not going to go super far. You're only going to go up to your stitch line. And you do that all 4 corners. And then once you do that,
Down.
your side piece will be able to turn, like your side panel here, and you'll be able to clip this side piece with no problem. Because see, you're going to form a little triangle there by clipping. And it'll allow this side piece, it's called a relief cut, so that you can stitch it. So that should lay nice and flat. And then when we stitch, we're going to be able to stitch from where we stopped here at this corner all the way to where we stopped here at the other corner. And when I stitch this seam, I do it from the top. So I'm going to flip this bag this way. I'm going to kind of open it up, lay it flat, and then I'm just going to stitch again from where I stopped here all the way over to this side where I stopped there, right across. Don't go all the way to the edge.
Okay.
So you can see here how I didn't go all the way to the edge of the bag. I just went from my stitch line to my other stitch line. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Alright, so from here we're going to trim the seam allowance down and then we're going to turn the bag. I will do that and we'll come back. This is really coming out great. I love this. I put my tag here at the bottom and the front. And then of course in the back it looks exactly like the front, but we have these awesome hidden zippers. Fun, fun. And as you can see, it is a fairly large bag. So we're going to move on to our lining. And I took the liberty of doing a few things on the lining ahead of time. Things that you've seen me do before. I stitched my slip pocket. So all I did was I folded it in half, stitched down the sides, turned it, and I just top stitched or stitched the top up here closed. Okay. Super easy. I'm going to place double-sided tape on both sides of the accent piece, and then we'll stitch that accent piece on, and our slip pocket will be done. Now, one thing that's not in this pattern is a key fob, and I definitely want a key fob in here. So I just took a piece of faux. It is a 1.5 inches wide by, I think I did around 12 inches long. Put double-sided tape on one of the long edges, folded it in half, and stitched 1/4 inch away from the side. I then cut that down to 1/8 inch with my rotary cutter, and then just put a little clasp and rivet on it. And if you want to see me do this in action, any of my other videos that I do have these key fobs. I do them all the time. So I did that. So let me place this pocket on this accent piece, and I usually do it just shy of the center, and I eyeball it. But I want to make sure that when I fold this over, the front and the back of this accent piece at the bottom are close. And you'll know if they are, if their edges match up here when you fold them over. And now I'm going to top stitch. From here, I'm just going to cut the corners off that are sticking out, even with the edge of the pocket, and then you have a nice looking pocket, nice and even. Okay. Now when we sew this on, we're going to actually divide this pocket in half. So I'm just going to put a little crease in this so that I know where the halfway point is, and then I'll probably end up marking it with the air erase pen before I sew it on the pattern piece. Which, actually, let's do that right now. Take one of your lining pieces. Go ahead and find the center. And I'm going to find the center at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to mark it with a little notch. And then Gail does say how far to put this pocket. And she has you measure from the bottom on this one. So I am just going to double check. Wow, that was close. I did good on that one. Now you can either use pins, or my newfound love that I have are these Totes. These are the magnetic clasps, and they work great for pockets. You just stick it on, and then stick the bottom on first. And they're magnetic, and they hold your pockets on great when you sew. So they have a lot of different types of sew types. These are, I think, some of the biggest ones as far as length, and they're super strong. I mean, your pocket is not going to go anywhere with this. Okay, see? Isn't that cool? A lot of you are probably familiar with Sew Tite. A lot of quilters use them. So I can still see my center mark. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and stitch. So I'm going to stitch down, over, up and down, over, and then up again. I always come over one stitch in the middle so I have a place to put my rivet. So from here I'm going to put rivets just to kind of hold the sides of the pockets in. The pockets have a lot of in and out, and it's easy for these stitches to come out even though you've back stitched. So I'm just going to punch a hole in each side and then right between my stitches in the center. And you see I'm just rolling my lining to get down to the point where I need to punch. And then I'll just iron this out. I'm going to use some Decaville Heavy behind the rivets, so I just keep scraps of that, and I'm just going to punch little holes. And then we'll put our rivets. Take these off now. And the great thing about the industrial machines is that this, since they're magnetic, I could just stick them to the machine and they're always right there. Okay, I'm going to go set these rivets and then we'll move on to the other side of the lining. Okay, we have the rivets set. Everything's looking good on this side, so we're going to put that aside for just a minute. We're going to take our other lining piece. We're going to find the centers just like we did on the other one. And then this side, this time from the top, we're going to measure down and we're going to put our zipper overlay. Now, I already put double-sided tape on the back of it. This is 1/4 inch double-sided tape. Put it on both sides. Then I'm just going to measure down and place this, and you're measuring from this point here, from the center point, not from the upper point. So let me find the center of this. I usually just kind of pinch it for a second. That stays while I set it. And it looks good. So we are going to go ahead and stitch on the outside edge. Okay, so just around the outside, not this far outside edge. And take a few hand cranks here in the most severe part of this curve. I am going to pull my threads through to the back so I can tie those off. And then we will tie them off and cut the center out of this pocket. So remember, when you cut the center, you don't ever have to worry about how it looks on the back. Nobody's going to see that. You just want to make it look nice and pretty on the front. Sometimes when I'm in workshops with people, I see them try to cut the pocket or the lining exactly even with the opening of the zipper pocket, and you don't need to do that. You just have to cut it so that you don't see it. So what I mean by that is I'm going to cut it beyond the edge. So I just kind of fold this back against my double-sided tape and just snip. Just make sure you don't cut your overlay. And then you see how on the back you see the front part coming through. But what's nice about that is on the front you won't see the back. So don't try to snip this and get it super even with this opening. Just cut it larger than the opening. I guess that would be the way to say that. This makes for a super neat zipper. And actually, this is the only way I do my zippers. You put a little piece of double-sided tape on that knot. And then the other thing I did is I sewed my zipper to the zipper pockets. So you're going to take your zipper, place the wrong side of the zipper against one of the right sides of the pocket, stitch, then turn it so that the zipper is laying flat and top stitch. You're going to repeat for the other side. You know you've done it right if you see the right side of the zipper and the wrong side of the pockets. And then when you flip it, you see the right side of the pockets and the wrong side of the zipper. And all my tutorials, I do these so you can go back if you want to see exactly how that's done to a previous tutorial, and you will be able to see that done easily. So we are going to take the backing off of the double-sided tape, and we're going to center the zipper in this opening. And if it's not centered, you can reposition. I have seen people do this without using double-sided tape. They just adjust as they go. I think Celine from Blue Cow is one of them. She's amazing. She just like puts it together and it's perfect. Okay. So now we're going to stitch around the inside, and we have square corners on the inside, so it's going to be easy to stitch that part. Easier, let's say. Although there's nothing super difficult about this bag, you just need to take it step by step. Oh, so you take another half of a stitch. Then I'm going to pull my threads through to the back again. Make sure I stop in the same hole I started. So this time when I tie these off, I'm not going to be able to put tape because this is the inside of my pocket. So I am going to singe the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and get that thread through, tie it off, and move on to the next step. Okay, so from here you're going to take the top part of your pocket, bring it down to meet the bottom, and it's not going to meet because whenever you do your zipper pockets this way, they don't meet, and that's okay. we're going to clip the sides, and then we're just going to cut that bottom piece off. Now we're going to leave the bottom of the zipper pocket open because we're going to turn the bag through the bottom and then use this zipper pocket to close the bottom of the bag. So I'm just going to clip. And then you want to turn this to the right side and pull this away and stitch. So we'll stitch down. We're going to make sure we back stitch really good over here and back stitch really good over here. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side and stitch. Okay, there we have our zipper pocket done. So while I'm thinking about it, I am going to take my key fob, and there's no top or upper lining on the inside of this bag. So I'm going to take my key fob and I'm just going to baste it to the side of this bag so that when I stitch my side seams, I'm not going to forget to put it in, because I'm really good about that. I get to the end and I see the key fob and I think, oh no. And see how I have it at an angle? That just helps kind of keep it at the bottom of the bag instead of it being straight out. And I usually like my zipper pockets at the back of the bag. I'm going to put my zipper pocket on the front of the bag in this bag because we have that zipper pocket already on the back. So I'm going to flip-flop it. Okay, so from here, we are going to put our linings together. So I'm going to line everything up and clip. And do the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to stitch. Okay, from here, we're not going to sew the bottom on yet. We're going to hold off on that. So set your lining aside for just a minute and grab your zipper for the top. You can either mark this or you can eyeball this, whatever your comfort level is. And just put maybe about an inch from the top. Just going to put a couple lines on this zipper so that I know exactly where to fold it. I'm going to take a couple of pins. So we're going to open up this zipper. Just be on the mark. We're going to pinch on that mark. And we're going to take that pinch and we're going to fold it at a 45-degree angle up to the teeth. And we're going to put a pin. So it looks like that. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, pinch on our mark, and then fold it up against the teeth. So that when you hold these two sides together, they should be even. So from here, we're going to just tap this down. I like to have the tail of the zipper behind me when I do this. And I'm just going to take a few stitches forward and back stitch. And I just try to go slow there so I don't hit my pin. Do the same thing on this side. Okay, so now this is what we have. You see those little stitches there? Holding all that together. So take your main bag. We're going to put the zipper on top now. And we need to find the center of the sides, if you haven't done that already. So I'm going to match up these seams and just mark my side. Okay, then from our sides, we are going to make a mark. And this is going to be where we put our zipper. So grab your ruler. And on the right side of the bag, from the center mark you just made, go ahead and measure out and make a mark. And do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so from here, now if you want your concealed pocket in the back, you're going to have your zipper teeth starting over here on the left, because you want your zipper to close towards the left, if you want your zipper to close towards the left. So just kind of keep that in mind as we put this on. I am going to put some double-sided tape on here because we're going to stitch the lining and the zipper in the front all together. So just put the double-sided tape between the marks here. And you do have a slight curve here. The other thing I'm going to do is where my seams come together and I have a little bit of seam jutting out, I'm just going to clip that off and make sure it's nice and even with the top of the bag.
Okay.
So now peel the backing off the tape and line the edge of the teeth. So it's going to be this right angle edge right here up with your mark. So the teeth are going against the mark and the long part of the tape is being matched up at the top of the bag. When you get to the other side, where your mark is, you're going to veer off. Now at this point, I like to just separate my zipper. So that way I'm only contending with one part of it. And then also, if you need to, you really want to make sure that your zipper is not wonky. you know, curvy as we go through this. So make sure your zipper is lying nice and flat and you don't have any tucks in it.
That.
And if you need to stick and re-stick, you can certainly do that. Because of the curve, sometimes that's a little tricky. And then what I like to do at this end is just take the zipper itself and fold it down so you have a little right angle on this side. But we're not going to cut the teeth off. We're just going to fold that right angle. I'm going to pull a clip there so I don't accidentally sew this closed. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to put some tape. Take the other side of my zipper. Match the teeth, the right angle of the teeth up with the mark. And then the long side of the zipper up with the side of the bag. So essentially the raw edges are meeting here. And then on the other side, when I get to that mark, I'm just going to angle my zipper down at the mark and put a clip. Okay, so that's what we have so far. So now I'm going to take my lining and set this aside. And I'm going to put double-sided tape all the way around the top on the right side. So it doesn't matter where you start. And keep coming all the way around. And this will just help hold our sides stay in place as we stitch across the sides too. All right. So from here, we're going to put our bag together. So I'm going to make sure, like I said before, my zipper pocket is on the front of this bag, not the back. And we're going to slide this in. And I'm going to start with the sides. So I'm going to peel the backing off the tape. Match the side up. I am going to put a clip there just to help me hold it. And then I'm going to continue peeling the back off, which, here we go. And I'm going to match up the raw edges all along the zipper. Now, my centers of my lining are marked. Centers of my bag is not marked. Shame on me. Let me mark up my other side and then we'll work the rest of that in. You really should mark the center of your main bag as well. Really, the smart thing to do is in the beginning, just mark the centers of everything and then you have it. You don't have to worry. Sorry, I'm going to have to kind of stand this up. Let me see, I think. So you want to make sure that your tails are in. So get those tails in there, your zipper tails. Match up the side. Okay, now I'll peel the backing off the rest of this and work this in. Okay, so here we go. It fit beautifully. So now we're going to stitch all the way around the top. I do want to make sure I don't grab this inner pocket because we don't need any more bulk than we already have, which isn't a whole lot, but I'm just going to cut that back a little bit. Before we pull the bag out, we want to do a few things. Let's go ahead and clip these edges of these zippers off. And this is the part where we had the right angle, where we sewed the right angle on, not the part where the zipper tail is hanging down. Once I do that, I'm just going to burn these edges. I'm going to make sure they're good to go. Okay, we're going to take some super sharp scissors and we want to cut, because we have a curve here, we need to cut little triangles in. So don't cut your stitching, and if you do, just stitch over it. It's not the end of the world. But I'm going to cut little triangles in all the way along this edge. And that's just going to have a good effect on this because it's going to allow the fabric to go somewhere when this turns. So you figure you're asking the fabric to, instead of being a straight line where it's a 1-for-1 ratio, this is curved. So the fabric essentially is having to scrunch up on itself once you curve it, and it don't like doing that. And that's usually when you get things bunched up and not laying flat. So by putting these little triangles in, like this, when you turn this bag and this curves, you see that that has space there for it to turn and lay flat. Okay, so I'm going to go along this edge. Don't clip the sides. Really, once this turn stops, you can stop clipping. I'm just going to do it from here to here on both sides, and then we'll turn the bag. All right, so I have all my little triangles cut in. I'm going to go ahead and pull the bag out. Now I want to make sure that my lining side seams are open. And I'm going to lay this nice and flat. Make sure this one's open. Lay it nice and flat, and we'll stick our lining in. So go ahead and put the lining inside, and then we're going to make sure everything looks good on our zipper. And if you want to take this to the iron at this point and iron the lining down, you can certainly do that. But I might just do it.
That's
Just to make sure everything is pushed out of the way. So your lining kind of wants to buckle up a little bit there. That's normal. You just need to, an iron will do wonders. So let me go ahead and bring this to the iron. I'm going to just iron that down, and then we'll top stitch the bag. Okay, I highly suggest that you take an iron to this. It's going to help everything lay flatter. I did put a few clips on my sides where I don't have any zipper, and then on the seams to kind of hold everything down. So now we're going to go around, we're going to top stitch. And I'm going to start on the side. And typically I would take this to my cylinder arm, but this is a big bag and we can do it here, so that's what I'm going to do.
it's
We'll
good.
take it a little at a time. And you can see I'm kind of pulling on my zipper a little bit as I go, just to make sure it's out all the way. Make sure your zipper tails are out here. Now your back seams are going to be the thickest because we have a little extra in there. So if you have a walking foot machine, just watch it so that your foot doesn't mess up your project. We're almost done. One more back seam here to go, and then just about there. I love bags like this where the sides, the lining seams and the seams on the front of the bag don't intersect at all. It just helps really keep the bulk down. The Julie is one of the Simply Classic patterns that has that. Really makes for a nice sew. Just in one back stitch there to hold it in. And we're done with that part. All right, so now we need to finish the lining. It turned out really good. All right, so to finish the lining, we're going to unzip our zipper pocket. We're going to pull the pockets out. And then we're going to pull the lining through the pocket, the bottom of the lining through the pocket. Now, I love doing bags this way. I just really makes it nice to turn, and it's really a great way to do it. Just know that when you're done, you're going to need an iron on this lining. It's just kind of the way it goes. And that's okay. All right, so now we have the bottom of our bag here, okay? And we have, here's the bottom piece. So find your centers. I'm going to find them both ways, the long way and the short way. And then I'm going to clip the center on one of the long edges to the center on one of the long edges here, where the front or the back, either one, which is what our long edge is. Okay, just worry about one edge right now, one long edge. We're not going to sew all the way to the edge of this lining piece, of the bottom piece. We're going to stop before we get there. And Gela gives you a measurement as to where to stop. So I'm going to measure that so I don't forget and sew too far. So I'm going to stitch from the bottom side. This is the bottom piece. I'm going to start at that mark, and I'm going to stitch all the way to the other mark. So just make sure everything's laying nice and flat. And as you go, just straighten it out. Well, clips don't want to stay clipped. There we go. Just trying to make sure my edges are aligned. I'm not quite aligned.
Yep.
Okay, so from here, right where we made our mark on the main lining part, not the bottom, we're going to put a little snip up to our stitch line. Okay, so here's our bottom. Here's our main lining part.
With help.
And right there where my mark is, I'm going to put a little snip up to my stitch line. Just like that. From here, I should be able to match everything up now, all of my centers. So here's my seam, my side seam. That matches up with the center of my bottom side, so I'll clip that. And of course, it allows our back to turn there as well. We're going to match up the centers here. This is on the long edge again. Other side. And where we get to where that mark is, you see how this doesn't want to fit in, right? Because you've got a straight edge and you have a 90-degree angled edge. That's never going to go together. So you need to do a relief cut in your lining to get that to match up. So to do it, to know exactly where to do it, you're going to measure on the bottom piece again, as far over as what Gail tells you in the pattern, because that's where you're going to start and stop stitching. And that is where you're going to put your relief mark. Now you can go ahead and sew that long edge first if you'd like. I am going to go ahead and just put a little snip here.
8. Good.
And then we should be able to sew all that together. But I'll tell you what, I don't like the way that's looking. I'm going to just sew this long edge first. That's what works for me. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to clip all of this.
Should.
Make a mark over here, start and stop where I'm supposed to, and sew this one long edge first, and then we'll sew the side seams. Gail has you kind of do it all in one.
Man.
But that's not working for me today, so we're not going to do it. So just stitching the long edge right now, the other long edge. Now I'm going to make sure I stop at my other mark. All right, then from here, we'll make our snips. Okay, so on the bag itself, the lining itself, go ahead and make your snips. This side has both, and you see how nice that place. So see, there are little triangles cut, or yeah, I guess you call them triangles cut out, squares. You see here my snip wasn't far enough over, or it was too far over. But once I snipped in the right place, it laid nice and flat. And all I had to do was snip again. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. See that? I snipped in the wrong spot, so I had to snip here. And that's why it's easier sometimes to wait and snip until after you've sewn, because then you know exactly where to snip to, right to your stitch line. Okay, so we're going to sew these and then we'll put the lining back in. Almost done. We'll have our handle left to do. So I'm going to stitch from my original stitch line here, right here. This spot, I'm going to stitch all the way up until this spot right here, my other stitch line. Don't go to the edge, just stop right there.
So,
Okay, I am going to trim my seam allowances back some before we push the lining in, especially on these corners.
typical. Yep.
Make sure you don't cut your lining in the process.
Croc.
All right, and let's push that lining back in. So we're pushing it back in through that pocket, and now it's completed.
Yay.
So we should be able to push it all the way down to the bottom. And it needs an iron, but look at how nice that fits. It is great. So now we're going to just fold our pocket. Anywhere between a fourth to a half an inch. I'll never forget the first time I saw this being done, pulling the bag through the pocket and finishing it and sticking it back in. I was like mystified. I was like, oh, wow, that is so cool. Okay, now we're going to stitch that closed. All right, let's put the pocket in. Like to poke those corners down real good. Close the pocket. Go ahead and get a zipper pull. Let's get a zipper pull on here. And the good thing about doing this way is that if your zippers aren't exactly lined up on this end, like where they start and stop, you can cheat it a little bit on this end by putting one edge in a little further than the other.
No.
Let me see how they line up before I start finagling with that. By doing that right angle here, it'll take your zipper and kind of put it in here, the tail, so it's not hanging out, and it sits in there nicely. That's lined up pretty good. All right, so now we need to do our handle. So for our handle, I'm going to do like we normally do. Draw a line down the center. Now let's see. I'm going to put some double-sided tape. This is 1/4 inch double-sided tape. You're going to peel the backing off one end and fold it up towards the center. Leave a little space. You don't want to fold it all the way up to the line. You want it 1/8 of an inch from the line, so that when you fold it again, the fabric will have a place to go. Most handle twisting starts at the table. And I have a video that kind of gives you a couple tips and tricks on how to make sure everything's lined up properly. I think it's in the Bag Maker's Word for Him series. So you want to make sure that before you do anything else, your handle's laying flat. If it's not laying flat at this point, it'll never lay flat when you go to sew it. Okay, fair enough? So now we're going to fold it again. Let's put some clips. And we're going to stitch. And for this part, I always like to use my edge guide. I am going to do a little back stitch here because these ends are not going to show. You'll see why in just a bit. And we're going to repeat. So now we have our handle. We have our strap connectors, and they're kind of funky looking things. We want to draw a line down the center. So when you look at the center is from this long edge, not this short edge, okay? And when you draw the line, you're going to draw it all the way from the edge of this little tiny short edge to the edge of the other one. You're going to put some double-sided tape just on the short side, so just right there. Actually, that was a little bit too long. Cut the next one shorter. Just like that. So now we're going to peel the backing off of this. We're going to fold it in to the center. Just like this, right along the edge of where you cut. Okay, so now you have this. We're going to put another piece down the center.
Yes.
And now we're going to fold the long edges in to the center. And this time you do want to make sure that those long edges hit that center mark. So I folded this in a little bit too much, this side. We refold that.
All right.
So now you have a connector with no edges, no raw edges. So we're going to stitch around all four sides of this. I'm going to start and stop in the same hole and pull my threads through to the back on here so that I don't have any back stitching. And instead of cutting them, I am just going to, well, I mean, I am going to cut them eventually, but I'm going to lift the backing off this tape a little bit and just kind of stick them in, and that will hold them. And then I'll snip. So now I'm going to do the same thing with these three, and then we'll come back. Okay, it's time to put the finishing touches on the bag. So now that I have all my strap connectors done, I went ahead and made 6 holes in each connector. There's 3 on this side and there's 3 on this side. Gil gives you the measurements on exactly where to put those holes. Then you're going to take a swivel clasp and you're going to put it right in the center and make sure all your holes line up. You're going to take your strap, and essentially this is what we're going to go for, right? We're going to have this is what it's going to look like. We're going to have the strap connector go around the end of the strap. So I'm going to put this on. It's like this. And you can punch holes from here, or you can go ahead and make marks. I like to make marks because sometimes I feel like if I try to punch the holes, it goes a little sideways and then things are crooked. And so I'm just going to mark my holes through these existing holes. Then I will punch. We'll go ahead and put rivets. Now, the pattern calls for 9mm rivets. I had to go a little bit bigger. I'm actually having to use 12. I didn't think that this faux was super thick, but once you put all these layers together, I guess it was thick enough that I ended up having to go a little bit longer on my rivets. So just make sure your rivets are not too short. All right, I'm gonna see a couple little threads here. Let me cut those back. This is on the handle itself. All right, so then we're going to just close this up. And then we'll set the rivets. Okay, and then our strap is done. Very cool. So we're also going to put one of these strap, or two of these strap connectors, one on each side of the bag. So this is what it's going to look like here. The reason why you leave as much space as you do, one is to make sure that it's easier to sew the zipper on, but also because you need to put these strap connectors on. So I put already one on that side. I'm going to take this side. This is the side where the zipper teeth end. I'm going to make sure I'm centered. I'm going to take you can either use a D-ring or I have a triangle ring here. Put it in, make sure my holes match up. And then put it right over the side here. And then mark it. Then from here I will punch my holes. And you're going all the way through the lining.
Let's take. Soon.
The last one is a little deep. You might have to turn your side up a little bit to get to it.
You should.
All right, let's put our rivets in. Put it through our holes. We'll fold it over. Put our ends on. And then we'll set them. All right, and then just like that, the bag is completed. So I'm going to put an end on my zipper, a little zipper end on here. You can either do that with fabric or with an actual piece of hardware. I'm going to use a piece of hardware, and then we'll take a look at the bag. Here it is. It is a big bag. And see how it's kind of a slouchy bag? I like it. I really like it. I always like bags that have single straps because I always feel like one strap's falling off my shoulder. So that's a plus for sure. Just the fact that it has this pocket in the back that you can't even tell the back from the front, right, is super cool. I love a big bag. This is definitely a big bag. Let's look at these pockets in the back. So when you unzip, first of all, they're super hidden, right? You cannot tell they're there at all. And then when you unzip, it goes all the way through. I recently went overseas. My husband and I took a vacation, and I took an American Stitchers bag that I made. I ended up using this pocket for my passport and my phone because I didn't want to have to keep unzipping the top and going in it constantly. And this little back zipper pocket was perfect, especially at the airport and everything. It was great. So inside, of course, needs an iron, but this side we have our zipper pocket. Over here we have a slip pocket. I made sure to put the slip pocket against the back zipper pocket, okay? You didn't have to, but that was just one of the little extra things. We have our handles riveted on, so the rivets go all the way through to the back, okay? You have those nifty strap connectors, which I love because there's no raw edge. There's no reason to edge paint, which is great. That's a plus. Let's see. I mean, it's just a great bag. So I'm going to link below everything that I've used on the bag. This is a crocodile pattern that we have that we recently got in. It's the name of it's Chestnut. So I'll link that below. The lining I used was Safari. It's a linen lining from the website. All of the hardware I sell on the website. All of the triangle rings and everything else. And until next time, the Joyce from American Stitchers. Love it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I always forget to ask that, and I really need y'all to subscribe. If you watch these videos over and over, I really would appreciate it. It does help us tremendously when you subscribe. So, till next time, everybody, happy sewing.